Well, thank you for asking me to share with you a little number of tips and tricks to get your paper published and put it down. And I was expecting a much junior audience, so I know you're very senior, and I don't think I have anything to teach you. Actually, probably have to learn from you. But I understand that these sessions are recorded. The slides are there, so if you want to share them with your juniors whenever time comes, it might be helpful. Let's start with the basic. The basics is that there is far too many publications. There is almost 3 million papers per year, which makes it 7,000 publications per day. So basically, it's a killer figure, and this is the background that you need to keep in mind when you start. So you need to ask yourself, why on earth am I writing a paper? It is true that practical clinical practice in theater, on the ward, in the lab is teaching us new lessons, and it is our responsibility to update the scientific community with what has been discovered, recorded every day. And then this you might like to wrap up in a little publication, and you compare it with your friends, and you really need to publish it. But make sure that you never publish or write up something because you want to say something. You really say something because you have to say something, or you have something to say. Another important lesson is never to copy your mentors, because most of the time they go the old way, they are very boring, and you need to be creative and you need to enjoy the process, because bad writing is self-contagious, and you keep learning bad mistakes. So look at the literature, read the literature, and move things forward. There is no way I can tell you this is the fixed, perfect layout to write a manuscript. You can start with pen and paper, you can start from your laptop, whichever way you are more comfortable. Make sure you don't start polishing up or refreshing, because you end up stumbling. What you want to do is to pour down what you have in your pocket, and look at it and be creative, and new drafts will come in the future. Perhaps a first important step is to consider, well, am I after a full article, an original manuscript, or is it a short communication, or is it a proper review paper? You need to ask yourself how to position your paper, and maybe your colleagues and your supervisor can help you and guide you in identifying what your efforts are. You also want to ask yourself, who's going to read this paper? Who's going to be my audience? And this helps you in choosing the proper journal, so that you target the right candidates and the right journal. You don't want to submit the manuscript to several journals, because this is against the law, and make sure that we will spend a word on plagiarism later on. So choosing the right journal, of course, you want it published on the New England, don't you? But it's not so easy, and prioritizing the impact factor is not always the best way, because you might end up never getting your little paper published. So you want a journal that is consistent with the topic that you're dealing with, and hopefully a reputable journal where the impact factor is sufficiently rewarding. With regard to editorial policies and the turnover of the research, most journals display these on the web page. This is my journal, but any journal does it. They tell you which the guidelines are, they explain you what you really have to do. Methodologically, I encourage you familiarizing with the IMRAD. IMRAD you can find on Wikipedia, and IMRAD stands for Introduction, Method, Results, and Discussion. So this is the structure that your manuscript should rely on. And these are all the topics that you want, the boxes that you want to fill in when you complete your manuscripts. Title, abstract, keywords, introduction, methods, results, conclusion, acknowledgements, reference, and supporting material. So, however you look at it, these are the tiles, these are the bricks that you put together to build it up. Make sure you don't start with the boring order that I just presented. I warmly encourage you to look at these slides, because this to me is the way you want to start. You put on the table what you have. Your patients, you put some sketches, figures, and graphs, and this is what you have. And then you start dissecting it and coming with results and outputs. And then you see that the results are quite interesting, so you start drafting a discussion. Now, when you draft the discussion, you know why, or you need to convince yourself why this paper is really needed, and this should be stated into the introduction. And then it's almost done. Then you need to write up an abstract with keywords, title, and authors. So let's start with the introduction. Make sure it's brief and easy to read for the readers, for the reviewers, for the editor, for whoever. I'll come on these again and again and again. Simple, easy, short sentences, straight to the bone. So address the problem, identify the possible solution, convince the reader that it's a must for them to read your manuscript because it's the best piece of science ever written, in 3 lines. And be suspicious of very long introductions, because sometimes they are boring, they end up bringing things into the that should be put in the discussion section. They are suspicious because they bring in something which belongs to somebody else. So short. Methods. Methods is pretty easy, because you really need to describe step by step in a crystal clear way the steps that you have covered, the methodology you have used, the shoes you were wearing, who you have dealt it with, at what time, from, to. It should be very, very photographic. And all these detailed information should also include the instrumentation that you have used. I also encourage you adding a statistical paragraph as part of the final part of the patients and methods, because you really need to clarify with your mathematician what kind of statistic you have been using. In the methods, it's also quite good to pin down your acceptance of the ethical committees, your cooperation, your adherence with guidelines, whether it's local, regional, institutional, university, national, whichever guidelines, but you need to say that you're not a crazy guy who's done something out of his mind, that you have coped with the... So put it down. People is happy to read this. Now you can move to the results. And the results are whatever you squeeze out of the methods, patients and methods that you have done before. And in the results, you have 1,000 million results, but you don't want to list them all. You want to put down the main results for which you're writing the paper. You don't want to put down all possible results. So stick to the bone, clear and easy to understand, highlight the main finding. And of course, illustrations, tables, facilitate and clarify and shrink the text instead of telling me that you just a nice table and everything is crystal clear. Of course, table and figures should stand on their own. In the title, the title of the table tells you what is it, what it is all about, but the methodology has already been presented. Patients and method has already been presented. This is the result, and it's absolutely unquestionable. Abbreviations and it's so difficult to navigate in an article with million acronyms. Please make the readers and the reviewers' life easy, and make sure that it's coherent, because if you start the paper with an acronym without clarifying what it's all about, maybe then you switch to a different one. I'm not saying that you need a CT scan or an MRI. You don't need, you need to tell me that computer, that will be an ECG, remains an ECG. But make sure that you clarify for the easy life of a boring reviewer. The discussion also needs to be synthetic. It needs to be absolutely coherent with your results. One of the most frequent errors is that you have your results, you have your methods, you have your patients. You dissected this series with your methods, you squeezed everything out, and then you have these beautiful results, and in the discussion you speak about something else. What? I mean, this is your experiment, you've stated it, you're telling me that it's really important, and you tell me, and you give me other results, you bring up other topics in the discussion. Why on earth? Also, it's not bad if you mention the weakness beside the strengths of the paper, because it acknowledges your understanding of the literature. Sometimes problems are there, and weaknesses cannot be overcome. You need to accept that you couldn't do better in this scenario, in this setting. You have a trial and patients sign consent form at 83%. Well, that's not enough. But you say, I had the remaining patients were demented, and then they could not sign. They had someone signing on their behalf. And it's a weakness, but it's pretty well explained. And then be clear. Be clear and be clear. I'm going to say it. I always say it because Alberto Costa taught me this. Fresh fish sold here. So, sold, why are you expecting to give it as a gift? It's fresh fish sold, should be out. And fresh, why fresh? Are you giving me rotten old fish? And why here? This is your shop, are you not giving it anyway? So, fish, period. So bring it to the bone. It's horrible reading sentences that never come to an end, and there are 2 lines long, and you get lost. And so, fish. Okay, that's what you want to say, and I like it. Conclusions is challenging. You come to the conclusion, and at this stage you are slightly distressed because it's not over. At this stage you need to start again and polish your manuscript and make sure that there is no repetition, everything is coherent. And but when the job is done, you want to pin down the acknowledgements and the financial supporters and the proofreaders and whoever has assisted you. The reference list, keep it short again. So if this team run these experiments and prove that this is the case, you don't want to put their manuscript down 10 times because they said it once or twice, period. You don't really need to repeat it and repeat it. Self-citations, if possible, you can avoid because this is part of your history, but you don't want to quote Audisio, as Audisio said, and Audisio said, and yes, I'm telling you what I want to tell you, and that's it. From the formal point of view, stick to the guidelines of the style, the name, the year, it's trivial, it's just everything, and so the reference editor, reference manager should be able to adjust these. I would like to convince you that it's a privilege to accept manuscripts and get them published, and you don't have to fight a nasty editor who is really there to kill you. Most journals would be happy to assist you even in improving the English. But the juice should be really substantial, and the ethics should be coherent and supported. I'm touching on this because it's not exceptional. You will not believe it, but we have lots of litigations and people trying to convince you that they wrote on 35 cases and 6 months later it was 50 and 1 year later it was 100. And so you have these salami publications that are never endless, same methodology, same results, 3 publications. I'm not sure I'm going to accept it. And particularly when there is plagiarism, falsification, inappropriate authorships. I'm aware of professors who lost their job simply because they published fake data. And I hate doing it, but there is zero tolerance in that. It would be very, very annoying if you were to be discharged at an interview and your colleague is preferred because of his, her experience, which turns to be a lie. This is not so. This is to be fair. Like a referee in a football match should be fair. Authenticate is a system that we use regularly, and any manuscript is submitted is screened through this artificial intelligence tool that checks every word and every sentence whether it's been published or used in other manuscripts. So just be aware that Big Brother is there. Polishing, trim it. Imagine every single word costs a fortune and you want to use the least number of words. I skip you this technical, but I want you to remember that keeping it short is the best way. After all, Watson and Crick DNA Discover was published in 1 page in 1953. They didn't need a Bible, you know. Long titles, 3-line title. Again, fish. Short, sexy, attractive, eye-catching, convincing, but very short. And then authorship. It's rather annoying when you have 25 authors for 3 cases observed over 10 years. It's not convincing, you know, it doesn't work like that. Unless you have checked all the genome for these few patients, it's unlikely. So follow the ICMJ criteria for the authorship, and you have a first author and the corresponding author, but ghost authorship, gift authorship doesn't look right. And then the abstract. I left this for the last because this is the most important effort that you have to put. 98 out of 100 chances your paper will not be read. But the abstract will. So people read the abstract. Reviewers, colleagues on the journal, people make decision on the abstract. And the abstract should tell everything. And you got 10 lines to summarize everything. So if you don't tell me when was this study performed, how many patients you have included, what was the methodology, and how does it match with previous reference or previous literature, it's confusing. So the abstract really, really needs to be pinpointed. Keeping it brief and as possible as you can. So take your time and write it nice and carefully, review it. You will feel sick, it's really nauseating, but you have to do it because you really want to put it down right. The same is for the keywords, and be reassured that science is not finished until it's communicated. So enjoy the medical writing. Thank you.